You have probably heard someone say, "I wish I bought Bitcoin 10 years ago." Maybe you have said it yourself, sitting there watching the price climb, thinking if I had just put in £100 back then, I would never have to work again. But you did not buy it because you did not understand it. And honestly, most of the people who did buy it did not understand it either. Someone bought Bitcoin in 2010 and retired at 32. Someone else bought Bitcoin in November 2021 and lost everything by June 2022. Same technology, same asset, completely opposite lives. But this video is not about Bitcoin. It is about the technology underneath Bitcoin, underneath crypto, underneath NFTs, underneath everything you have heard about, laughed at, or lost money on in the last 10 years. It is about the next version of the internet and whether it actually exists yet. 20 minutes or less, the whole thing. Let us go. 3 versions of the internet to understand. Web 3, you need to understand what came before it. The internet has had 3 eras, and most people have lived through all 3 without noticing the shift. Web 1, 1991 to roughly 2004. The internet was a library, static pages, text, and images. You opened a website and you read it. That was it. No accounts, no profiles, no comments, no interaction. You consumed, the internet did not consume you back. Web 2, 2004 to now. This is the internet you know. Google, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Amazon. You do not just read anymore. You write, you post, you create, you interact. The internet became a conversation. But here is the catch nobody told you about. You do not own any of it. Every photo you have posted on Instagram belongs to Instagram. Every video on YouTube lives on YouTube's servers. Your followers, your content, your data, your entire digital identity exists on someone else's platform, and they can take it away. Accounts banned overnight. Platforms shut down. Companies acquired and changed. Everything you built, gone. Web 2 gave you a voice. It just kept the microphone. Web 3, the promise of something different. Read, write, own. The idea is simple. What if the internet was not owned by anyone? What if your data, your content, your digital assets lived on a system that no company, no government, and no platform could control or take away? That is Web 3. And the technology that makes it possible is called the blockchain. But before I explain blockchain, let me show you what it created. The pizza, May 22nd, 2010. A programmer in Florida named Laszlo Hanyecz posts on a Bitcoin forum. He wants to buy 2 pizzas. He is willing to pay 10,000 Bitcoin. At the time, Bitcoin is 8 months old. It has no established price, no exchanges, no mainstream awareness. Someone takes the deal. 2 Papa John's pizzas, 10,000 Bitcoin. Laszlo gets his pizzas. He is happy. He should not be happy. Those 10,000 Bitcoin are today worth somewhere between $500 million and $900 million, depending on when you check the price. He paid $500 million for 2 pizzas. Bitcoin. Pizza Day is now celebrated every May 22nd by the crypto community. A reminder that every asset starts worthless before it starts being worth everything. But how is it possible that a string of code became worth more than the GDP of some countries? To understand that, you need to understand what a blockchain actually is. What a blockchain actually is. Forget everything you think you know about blockchain. It is not complicated. The jargon makes it sound complicated. The reality is straightforward. A blockchain is a record book. That is it. A record of transactions. Who sent what to whom and when. But it is a very specific kind of record book. Normally, record books have a keeper. A bank keeps your transaction records. A government keeps your property records. A company keeps your data. The keeper has power. They can change the records, freeze your account, delete your history, deny you access. A blockchain has no keeper. Instead of one record book held by one institution, there are thousands of identical copies of the same record book held simultaneously by thousands of computers around the world. When a new transaction happens, every single copy updates at the same time. And here's the part that makes it powerful. You cannot change a record without changing every copy simultaneously, which requires controlling more than half of all the computers in the network at the same time. For Bitcoin, that is more than 15,000 computers spread across every continent on Earth. Nobody controls that. Not a government, not a company, not a billionaire. The record is permanent, transparent, and owned by everyone and no one simultaneously. That is what made Laszlo's 10,000 Bitcoin transaction irreversible. No bank to call, no refund to request, no manager to complain to. The pizza is gone. The record is forever. But here is a question you are probably asking. Those 15,000 computers keeping the record book, who runs them? And why would anyone volunteer their computer to do this? The answer is they are not volunteers. They are paid. How crypto is actually created. This is the part most people skip over because the jargon makes it sound impossible. Mining, proof of work, hash rates. It sounds like computer science. It is actually very simple economics. Someone needs to verify the transactions on the blockchain. Someone needs to confirm that when you send Bitcoin to another person, you actually have the Bitcoin to send. Someone needs to update all 15,000 copies of the record book at the same time. That someone is called a miner. Here is what a miner actually does. Their computer takes a batch of recent transactions, bundles them together into something called a block, and then races to solve a mathematical puzzle. The puzzle is deliberately difficult. It requires massive computing power. Thousands of miners compete to solve it at the same time. The first one to solve it gets to add that block of transactions to the chain. And as a reward, the network creates brand new Bitcoin and gives it to the winner. That is where new Bitcoin comes from. It is not printed by a government. It is not issued by a bank. It is created as a reward for the computers that keep the system running. And here is the part that makes Bitcoin different from every currency that has ever existed. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. That number is hard-coded into the software. Nobody can change it. No government can print more. No central bank can decide to create another trillion of them. Right now, roughly 19.8 million have already been mined. The remaining 1.2 million will be released gradually through mining rewards that get cut in half roughly every 4 years. This is called the halving. In 2009, miners earned 50 Bitcoin per block. By 2024, that reward had dropped to 3.125. By the late 2100s, the last Bitcoin will be mined and no new ones will ever be created. That built-in scarcity is the reason people compare it to gold. There is a fixed supply. The more people want it, the higher the price goes. Unlike government currencies where someone can always print more and dilute the value of what you already hold. This is called proof of work. You prove that your computer did the work of verifying transactions and the network pays you in newly created crypto. But there is a cost. The computing power required to mine Bitcoin is enormous. Bitcoin mining uses more electricity than some entire countries. The equipment costs thousands. The electricity bills are staggering. It has turned into an industrial operation where warehouses full of specialized computers run around the clock competing for rewards, which is why a second method was invented, proof of stake. Instead of racing to solve puzzles with expensive hardware, you lock up crypto you already own as collateral. The network selects validators based on how much they have staked. If they verify honestly, they earn rewards. If they cheat, they lose their stake. No warehouses, no electricity arms race. Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency, switched from proof of work to proof of stake in 2022 and reduced its energy consumption by over 99% overnight. Two systems, same goal. Keep the record book honest without needing a central authority to do it. And that same property, that permanence, that inability to reverse or censor or control is what makes blockchain both liberating and dangerous. Because the same technology that turned two pizzas into a $500 million legend also built something much darker. The Silk Road. 2011. A 27-year-old libertarian named Ross Ulbricht has an idea. What if you could buy anything online, anonymously, from anyone, with no central authority to stop you? He builds it on the dark web. He calls it the Silk Road. It works exactly like Amazon. Seller listings, customer reviews, a rating system, dispute resolution. The difference is the inventory. heroin, cocaine, fake passports, hacking services, everything illegal, everything available, everything delivered to your door. And the currency? Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin transactions are recorded on the blockchain, but the identities behind the wallets are anonymous. No name, no address, no bank account. The FBI had never seen anything like it. By the time they shut it down in 2013, the Silk Road had processed 9.5 million Bitcoin in transactions. At today's prices, that is over $800 billion worth of illegal trade. Sam on the cover of Forbes. He presents himself as a different kind of crypto billionaire. Altruistic, thoughtful, pledged to give away most of his fortune. The face of legitimate crypto. In November 2022, a journalist publishes a story about FTX's balance sheet. Within 72 hours, everything collapses. Customers try to withdraw their money. The money is not there. FTX had been lending customer funds to a separate trading firm called Alameda Research, also owned by Sam, without telling customers, without their consent. When the market turned and Alameda's bets went wrong, there was nothing left to pay anyone back. $8 billion of customer funds. Gone. Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas, extradited to the United States, found guilty on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy. In March 2024, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Here is the devastating irony. FTX was not a blockchain company. Not really. It was a traditional financial institution that happened to deal in crypto, a centralized exchange, one company, one set of accounts, one man in control. Everything blockchain was invented to replace. The people who lost money did not lose it because of blockchain. They lost it because they trusted a centralized intermediary with their money. The lesson of FTX is not that crypto is a scam. It is that the whole point of blockchain is to remove the need for trust in a central authority. And the moment you reintroduce a central authority, you reintroduce the risk that comes with it. What does this actually mean for you? So after all of that, the pizzas, the dark web, the fraud, the billions lost, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, but what does any of this have to do with me? I do not own Bitcoin. I am not building a crypto exchange. I just want to understand why everyone keeps talking about this. Fair question. Here is the honest answer. Most of what you have heard about crypto and blockchain is noise, speculation, scams, hype. But underneath that noise, there are 3 ideas that could genuinely change how everyday systems work. Not in some distant future. Some of them are working right now. Smart contracts. This is the one that matters most. A normal contract requires lawyers, courts, and enforcement. Someone has to make sure both sides do what they agreed to do. That costs time and money. A smart contract is code that executes automatically when conditions are met. No lawyers, no courts, no trust required. Here is what that looks like in practice. In 2022, a company called Lemonade processed an insurance claim in 2 seconds. A customer filed for a delayed flight. The smart contract verified the delay through a flight tracking database. The payout hit the customer's account before they had left the airport terminal. No paperwork, no phone call, no adjuster deciding whether to approve it. The conditions were met, the code ran, the money moved. Now think about every time you have waited weeks for an insurance claim. Every time a landlord held your deposit for months. Every time a freelancer did not get paid because the client disappeared. Smart contracts solve all of that. The agreement lives on the blockchain. The conditions are verified automatically. The money moves without anyone being able to block it or delay it. Decentralized finance. Everything your bank does, lending, borrowing, earning interest, trading, rebuilt on blockchain with no bank in the middle. At its peak in 2021, decentralized finance protocols held over $100 billion in deposits. People in countries with unstable currencies and unreliable banks were using it to store savings outside systems that had failed them before. Currently complicated, risky, and mostly unregulated. A lot of those protocols collapsed when the market turned. But the underlying idea, financial services without financial institutions, is not going away. Your bank charges you fees to hold your own money. The question is whether that model survives once the alternative actually works. Digital ownership. Think about this. You spend £200 on skins in a video game. The company shuts down the servers. Your £200 vanishes. You have no recourse. You never owned anything. You rented pixels on someone else's computer. Blockchain makes digital scarcity possible for the first time. An NFT, whatever you think of the JPEG boom and the speculation and the celebrity cash grabs, is at its core just a record of ownership on a blockchain. Provably scarce. Provably yours. Independent of any company's decision to keep the lights on. Whether that matters for JPEGs is debatable. Whether it matters for concert tickets, property deeds, academic credentials, and medical records is a different question entirely. The honest verdict. So is Web3, the future or the biggest scam in history? The honest answer is both, and neither. The technology is real. A permanent, tamper-proof, decentralized record system has genuine applications that go far beyond cryptocurrency speculation. The speculation is also real. Most crypto projects have no underlying value. Most NFTs are worthless. Most Web3 startups will not exist in 5 years. Both of these things are true simultaneously. The internet went through the same thing. The dot-com bubble of 2000 destroyed billions of dollars and wiped out hundreds of companies. It was genuine speculation and genuine fraud. It was also the foundation on which Google, Amazon, and everything you use today was built. The bubble was wrong about the timing and the valuations. It was not wrong about the technology changing everything. Web3 is somewhere in that same period right now. Most of what exists is noise. Something underneath the noise is probably signal. The question is not whether blockchain changes the world. Some version of it almost certainly will. The question is whether the thing you are buying today is the signal or the noise.